Hey guys, welcome to today's chess video, and today I'm going to show you how to play chess. Now, if you clicked on this video, I'm assuming you're a complete beginner, you don't know how to move the pieces, what is chess, how do I play, what's the goal of the game, and my goal today is to explain that to you. Now, before we get started, I want to ask you to please like the video and subscribe for more daily chess content, and let's get right into it. So, first, I'm going to explain the goal of the game. The goal of the game is to attack the enemy king as the highlighted pieces on the board here. And essentially, you want to put the king in attack and have them have no legal move to escape. But you don't know what that means. How do I attack the king? How do I move the piece to attack the king? What's a legal move? Well, first I should show you how to move the pieces. Now let's start off with the basics. Pawns. On their first move, pawns can move 2 squares. Other than the first move, for example, I'm just going to waste a move here. Other than the moves, they can't move 2 squares anymore. They can move only 1 square. But you're like, what if I only want to play 1 square? Well, they can move 1 square on the first move too. So if you want to play 1 square on the first move, be my guest. Now, another things about pawns that you should know is they don't capture forwards. If you want to capture with a pawn, it has to be diagonal, like checkers. Pawns are very similar to checkers. They capture diagonally, they can't capture what's in front of them. Next piece, which is often the most tricky piece to get used to, is the knight. Now the knight, I've heard a couple ways of how it moves. Some people say it moves 1 square forward and then 1 square to the diagonal, but I believe that thinking in shapes is better here since chess is a game of patterns. So if you think about it, it's an L shape, hence the L arrow on chess.com. So if you think about it, it's just making an L shape all around here. Okay. And it moves to 8 squares. So sometimes you'll hear the term octopus knight, and that's when it's just like, it's looking at 8 squares. It's a great piece. It's like doing a lot. So yeah, knights move in squares, in L's. They're very tricky. There's a lot of like tactics with that. They're the only piece in chess that can jump over pieces. For example, I'm just going to play some silly moves here. Don't play like this. For example, I can still go to this square. But if I was a pawn, I can't move through this. Even if it's the hold on. Even if it's the first move, I can't move through this. It's just impossible. Okay, the next piece we're going to be looking at is the bishop. Now the bishop moves diagonally. That means all directions diagonally. Pieces in chess can move backwards except for pawns. So it can see diagonally, and you'll notice there are 2 different colored bishops. This is important. One can see diagonally on the light squares, as you can see highlighted here. These are light squares, and then the brown squares on the board are the dark squares. And this bishop can see diagonally along the dark squares. And the next piece we'll be looking at, I'm actually going to go to set up a position to make it less cluttered. I apologize. The rook. I'm just going to put some kings on the board for the sake of it. The rook, it sees straight in all directions. So I can move here. I'll explain how the king moves later. It can move side to side. So I can go anywhere, here and here and here. So it just moves in straight lines. It's very easy to understand. I'm not going to explain piece, like how much they're worth yet, because I feel like it's too much information. I'm going to try and explain one thing at a time. Next thing I will show you is how the queen moves. Okay. Here we go. How the queen moves. It's very simple. Think about a queen as the combination of a rook and a bishop. It can see straight. It can see diagonally. But it can't see an else. It's not a knight. It's a combination of a rook and a bishop. But it's not the same as a bishop because you can change what type of square it sees diagonally on. So let's say I move here. Now it sees on the light squares diagonally. If I move here, now it sees on the dark squares diagonally. It's a very powerful piece. It's the most powerful piece in chess. Next, I'm going to show you how the king moves. I'm not going to set up a new position since it's easy. Kings, they can move one square in any direction, but there's a catch. They can't move to a square where they would be attacked. So this is a legal move. All these are legal moves. But since the queen is looking at these three squares, if the king went on one of these squares, the queen could capture the king. And that would be illegal for the king to move onto a square that the enemy can do that. So it can move one in any direction except for the squares that are attacked by the enemy. Okay. And I think now I'm going to explain the special rule called en passant. A lot of beginners like, what the heck? Chess, there's a bug. Chess.com bugged. So I will, hold on, I apologize. En passant. What is en passant? This is a silly example, but I just want to show the concept of en passant. En passant is dealing with the special rule of pawns moving 2 squares forward on their first move. So in this position, black can play d5. And you're like, hey, what the heck? He just ran past me. I can't capture him. Because he's not diagonal to me, right? Wrong. The rule called en passant means, in French, in passing. So, if enemy pawn passes you without ever being diagonal to you, like in a position like this where the pawn moves 2 squares past your pawn, you can still capture diagonally. It's not a bug. It's real. It's a real chess rule. There's a lot of memes that have made about it, so feel free to have fun with that on Anarchy Chess on Reddit. En passant is forced. So yeah, the main idea of chess is to checkmate the enemy king. I'm going to show you a very quick example. This one's very basic. It's called the Scholar's Checkmate. A lot of beginners do play this since it's kind of easy to fall for if you don't know what you're doing. But essentially, by the way, I just want to point out that this position has been reached thousands of times, and black just straight up loses the game. But as white, you have to know what move to play. It's just not like you reach the position, you automatically win. You have to checkmate the king. What do I mean by checkmate? I mean attack the king and it has no legal moves. And the enemy has no legal moves to either defend the king or move the king. So in this position, I can play queen takes f7 checkmate. Now, the king cannot take the queen because it is defended by bishop. So if king takes, bishop would take the king, therefore it's not legal. The king can't go to this square, the queen looks at it, and the king can't go to these squares because his own pieces are on that square, and it can't go there either for two reasons. That square is controlled by the queen, and the bishop is blocking the king, and nothing else can capture my queen. Like, let's say if the enemy bishop was, that's a better example. Let's say the enemy knight was back here. The knight would be able to capture the queen, and it would not be checkmate. Nothing can block the queen from attacking the queen. So, for example, let's say this pawn wasn't here. This pawn, as you can see the arrow on the screen, the pawn could intercept the check between the queen and the king. So there you have it. I explained how you move the pieces, what is the goal of the game, how do you win the game, and yeah, there's so much chess learning material out there. Don't get overwhelmed, that's the main thing. If you want an amazing resource for getting started out, I highly recommend the Chessbrah Building Habits series. It's an amazing series for beginners. I watched it when I was starting out, and it was very helpful. So anyways, thanks for tuning in today, and I will see you tomorrow.